Now, there's a guy called Paul Eno who is an American researcher, and Paul has this fascinating concept of these entities actually being a form of psychic vampire. They feed on fear, and they generate fear in you, and it is their sustenance. I want to do the science of that. I want to say, well, if this is the fact, I don't just make statements like that. I want to know, well, if they were, what are they made of? In theology, theodicy is the idea of why evil exists. In other words, if a good God created this world, as the religious people believe, why does evil exist?
Donna's got the answer for that.
I haven't.
You did. You said it was the shadow.
Well, I think it's like a collective thing, that's trying to show us something.
Well, the argument
goes more deeper than that.
The Gnostics argue that it's because this is a simulation, this is Maya, this has been created by something they call the demiurge, the half-creator, the God that thinks he's God but isn't. And if you look at the Old Testament, there are two creation myths. The first creation is the creation supposedly of the real God, and the second, this is all just theoretical stuff, and it's not something I necessarily believe, but I think within myths are truths, and you find the truths. The creation myth, the first creation myth, and there's the second creation myth, which is Jehovah, the God that's smiting people, that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, and did all these terrible things. That's called Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth is the half-creator. But there's a God behind God, and there's a place behind this reality, which the Gnostics call the pleroma. It's the fullness, okay? And this is the kenoma. This is we are existing within the kenoma, which is the emptiness. And these are terms I'm going to be using in my new book about where these entities come from. The entities come from a place between the pleroma and the kenoma. There's a kind of an overlap place where these creatures seem to come through to and can actually manifest within this reality. They also argue that these creatures are the archons. The archons are kind of supposedly the rulers of this world. Now again, in DMT, I think the archons are the snakes. In DMT mythology, the idea that people see snakes, and the snakes, for instance, there's one thing I put in the new book which always amuses me, was I think it was Hana, who was an anthropologist who took DMT, and while he was in his DMT sequence, these lizard come snake entities start mocking him and saying, we're lords of the universe, we've created everything like this, you're just nobody, you're a human nothing. And he comes out of it really quite nervous, and he speaks to an old shaman, an old blind shaman, and he describes the creatures to the old blind shaman, and he said they were like bats, because obviously they didn't know what's lizards or whatever work, I don't know, but the attitude to him. And the old blind shaman goes, he said, yeah, they're bullshitters, they always say that. He said, don't believe them, they always say that. And I thought, wonderful, because that's what's really going on. These are fooling us.
Yes.
Even in other realities we're being fooled.
Yeah, and these are the archons. And the question is, do they really exist? If they do, what is the science behind them? And I think I can pull something together that will have a logic to it. And I'm only about halfway through getting the ideas together, but I think I can do a neurological model for this.